basically you said that the whole universe is conscious and intelligent. You know, Rupert, I am an astrologer. I'm a very passionate researcher on this psyche and cosmos relationship and some of the underlying assumptions that support astrology. It seems that some of your theories and ideas will be very supportive of astrology. I'm curious about what do you think about this psyche and cosmos relationship, and how is it possible that the movement of the stars can be related to human activity?
Well, I think that we live in a living universe. Within academic philosophy at the moment, there's a big rise of panpsychism, the idea of consciousness in nature, even in electrons and atoms. This, 20 years ago, would have been a very fringe view. It's now become increasingly mainstream. There's now a serious debate about this, and it's partly because people are recognizing the limitations of dogmatic materialism. That's the reason for the rise of panpsychism. But if you think it through, then it suggests that not only self-organizing systems smaller than us, but self-organized systems larger than us. I think that the sun, the entire solar system, is like an organism which has its own mind. This is simply a part of the holistic view of nature. And then the solar system is like a cell in the body of the galaxy. The galaxy is an even bigger organism. And then galaxies come in clusters of galaxies, which are like superorganisms. And then everything's ultimately within the whole cosmos, which is like the ultimate organism containing all other organisms. Now, this was, of course, a very common view in the ancient world. So we find something like this in the Platonic and the Neoplatonic traditions. We find similar things in other cultures, the idea we live in a living world made up of different levels of organization. I think this is the most correct and view of nature. It makes total sense. I certainly agree with astrologers that the Earth is part of an organism. The whole solar system is an organism, and the way the planets move gives it different qualities of time. And because they're in different positions as they move around in their orbits, the quality of time is different because the organism of the whole solar system is in different relative positions. So the physiology of the solar system is always changing, which changes the quality of time. That seems to me not only uncontroversial, but even obvious. That must be so. The bit where I have a bigger problem with astrology is when it comes to specific predictions or specific interpretations. You know, Mars has this influence if it's ascendant or descendant and stuff. It's partly that I don't know very much about it. I've never studied it. I've never felt particularly drawn to study it. My wife does and pays a great deal of attention to charts and things and times and so on. I suppose the problem I have with astrology as it's practiced at the moment is that it's not astronomical enough. Most astrologers do it from computer programs. It's too mechanistic for my taste. Although the philosophy is not mechanistic, the practice is. And in the ancient world, people thought that when there was a supernova in the sky, an exploding star, a sudden light in the sky, this was immensely important, an omen. And I first became aware of this problem with astrology in 1987. Now, there was an enormous supernova in the southern sky. The scientific magazines and journals were full of stories of this incredible star. You could see it with the naked eye. It was, enormous power coming out of this. Suddenly appears, lasts, weeks. They're not there all the time. And in the ancient world, these sudden exploding stars were seen as omens of the most important kind. There was one around 1604, which Johannes Kepler took as an omen that he thought had an influence on the scientific revolution itself. So I asked my astrologer friends what they made of this great supernova in the southern sky. And they looked completely blank. It wasn't on their Mac program for doing natal charts. They just weren't interested. And not interested in going out at night and actually looking at the planets and the constellations. It's all done from a computer. Now, I'm sure there are some who do look, but most of the ones I've met are actually disconnected from the actual sky. So what I think would be really healing And what I'd look for and get really interested in is if astrology and astronomy came together. And astrologers got really interested in looking at the sky, identifying the planets, for being able to point them out to people in the sky, not just on a Macintosh computer program or an app.